Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am here with John Andrew Morrison, Tony nominee for A Strange Loop. Congratulations on this nomination. This You've been with the show for quite some time. You've had a long journey. So, what does it feel like to become a Tony nominee after this very long journey
You know,
developing
it
it?
feel it feels like the greatest encouragement and the greatest attaboy that a performer could ever get. For a long time, I kind of was like, well, I know I'm talented, but I don't know that what I have to offer is what the business of show necessarily wants or what they deem needed or necessary. And so I was happy just being creative and doing things that fulfilled me creatively. And one of those things was A Strange Loop. So, when we were developing it at Musical Theater Factory and before just singing Michael's music, we're like, nobody's ever going to produce anything by Michael. He's too black, he's too queer, he's too honest. No one's ever going to do that. But it fulfilled my queer artist soul because no one had been writing things that were so honest and that I could relate to so deeply. So it feels like I don't know, we kind of waited them out, like they're kind of like going, "Oh wow, that thing you're doing over there, it's kind of good. Let's have more of that." So it's great encouragement, and I'm very thrilled.
Yeah. What would you say is sort of the biggest way your performance has evolved over the many iterations of this show?
I mean, so one thing is very personal, in that I'm sorry, I'm putting the tape back up on one of the cards that are falling down. I mean, one of the ways is deeply personal. My mom had a massive stroke at the beginning of the lockdown,
I'm
and
so
so I
sorry.
ended up moving home to Jamaica for about 6 months to help take care of her, which was like the most stressful time, but also felt like the biggest privilege of my life to be able to
Mm.
like go and be of service to my mom and to my dad during that time. And so definitely I think what has evolved, especially with the way I play the mom towards the end of the show, is a sense of urgency has definitely creeped in. And one thing that I understand greatly is that like time is not guaranteed and maybe health is not guaranteed. And so when she's like trying to you know help get his salvation together, that urgency or urgency has crept in because I don't know that uh her trying to save his soul was always there, but the element of like it's not guaranteed and time is not guaranteed.
Mm.
And I think the information about Darnell having died before the events of this play have also like resonated deeper with me. There's, I know you probably are like, well, that's not a very happy, but like mortality has made my performance a very different performance. But
Well, that's a
yeah,
real thing, a very real thing.
um,
It's it's so interesting thinking about the tone, the way the show establishes tone around that too, because your number periodically is very funny in parts. There's some funny
yeah.
lyrics, but on the flip side, it's really heartbreaking because this woman is hurting her son in many
Yeah.
ways. How do you approach that when you're playing the mother? How do you think of that moment?
I mean, it's all love. And I don't demonize this woman. In fact, I love her deeply. I love the mother deeply. And I it's so interesting because so many people um find, people will come up to me after and they're like, "Oh, that was my mother, that was my grandmother, that was my aunt." And I'm like, white people, Asian people, black people, like it's across the board. So I find it fascinating, but like it makes sense, right? Like mothers are kind of like our primary representations of love or lack thereof of love. But it all stems from love. Every single thing that she's doing on that stage, every single thing that she's saying is out of love and concern for her son. If she didn't care about him, she wouldn't tell him about his soul and salvation. But because she loves him deeply, she does. And you know, she's also in her loop, right? Like, you know, we're in this show that has this very spirally structure. And the reality is in a way, she's in her own loop, right? And so she can love him, but she's always going to loop back to her faith. She's always going to loop back to her belief. And I don't see it or play it from the point of view that she's damaging her son. I play it from the point of view that she absolutely adores him more than anything, and this is the person she wants to save more than anything.
Yeah.
So it comes from a full place of love. Love can be fucked up, but you know, it's coming from love.
And I think you're central to one of the biggest moments in the show, in this grand, extravagant Tyler Perry moment.
Yeah.
What I think it gets probably some of the biggest reactions from the audience. What is it like, you know, being at the center of that?
I mean, so, you know, the thing about it is, it's not like now we're you know, part of the brilliance of Stephen Brackett's direction is like he's always like, we have to stay ahead of the audience, right? And so we're driving the material along, and our pacing is paced in such a way that we're driving towards something because we know that there's going to be this thing that we're going to do. I think we've been with it now for so many productions that it's not even about me being impressed by it anymore. It's playing the moment, knowing that we're about to surprise the audience, that gets me excited. You know, I don't know if I'm answering your question fully correctly, but I will say the first time that we saw the set model at Playwrights Horizons, and we saw the house, and then, you know, there's another reveal, we all fell to the floor. And so playing that scene, knowing it's about to happen and knowing we're about to like screw up this audience real good and proper is kind of fun.
I can only imagine.
There are a couple moments like you know, where I'm backstage, and I have a couple moments with El Morgan backstage where we're waiting to go on, and there's like a big laugh line that happens, and I'll always turn to El Morgan and go, they still think it's a comedy. I don't know yet.
But soon it will change.
But soon it's going to change. Oh, poor dear audience.
Yeah, one of the things I love too about this show is that, you know, Michael R. Jackson has clearly woven so much of his own experience into this, so it's told from a very specific place.
Yeah.
And if you think about, you know, you're performing as the mother, and you've had these experiences with your own mother, did you have the space to sort of put your own experience and own pieces of yourself into this character?
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, you know, I take my mom onto the stage with me every night, and it's in a couple ways. There is you know, she can't speak anymore. She lost the ability to talk, and so there is a gesture that she has when she doesn't fully understand something, and she needs more information, and I found myself using that gesture in the show and using that very particular look, and I catch myself sometimes and go, oh mom, you're creeping in, you know. Yeah, so there's that, and you know, my mom used to call me on my birthday at like 5 or 6 in the morning and sing "Happy Birthday" loud and wrong. And it's one of the things that I will deeply miss, you know what I mean? And so and it was just like such a sense of play and ridiculousness and joy, and so and love. And so I try to communicate that to Usher every night, you know,
Mm.
the joy that she has in spending time with him and in playing with him, and you know, it's her favorite son.
Mm. What a great thing to take with you every night.
Yeah.
And I should mention for everyone watching who maybe hasn't seen the show yet, you don't only play the mother in this, you're one of the thoughts. And you get
Yeah.
to cycle through many different characters.
Yeah.
At some points rapidly, does it feel like you're kind of ping-ponging around?
Yeah, I will say so, like for all of us, the first, I have to say, like maybe like the first half hour of the show is bananas. It's nuts. So like once, you know, I mean, if it's nuts for us though, like heap on 10 more 20 more percent for Usher, who never leaves the stage. But once we start the show and like we do the intermission song, which is the opening number, we're in it. Like, you know, we always kind of go, okay, the roller coaster started. And if we're not on stage, we're changing to come back on stage, or we're getting ready to come back on and do another number. And the pacing of the first like half of the show just goes like this, bap, 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 and it's intentionally so we're staying ahead of the audience, and we're like, you know, so sometimes people go, oh, but I wanted to linger a little bit more in this moment, and we're like, no, 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 like we're keeping you guessing, we're keeping you in this state of almost like not suspended animation, I'm not even sure what it is, but like we want you to be leaning forward, we want you to be like playing catch up with the show. And so the pacing, especially the first, like, you know, it's so funny because if one thing that you might not even notice as an audience member is Stephen hasn't given you any time to applaud. So like the first half hour, like songs jump on one another. And that's done purposely. Like, you know, like one of the stagehands went, why doesn't he let people applaud? And it's like, because it's very intentionally paced, especially the first half hour or so of that show. Tightly moving, moving.
Yeah. I think some of that too, you know, all the thoughts, you all have great individual moments, but you also are this tightly knit ensemble. I think there's such a strong sense of a unit there. How long did it take to hone into that sort of group dynamic?
Well, I mean, you know, we had years when we started. So the development of the show has taken, you know, many years, many phases. But the musical theater factory development of the show is really kind of the moment when um, the version of the show that we're seeing now came to be, which was when Stephen Brackett came on board and said, I think it should be all Black queer bodies on the stage. And once that idea came into the mix and Stephen started to helm the show, it sparked something from Michael. And we had many years of development. And the thing about it is like Michael knows all of our voices. He knows all of our singing voices. He knows all of our acting voices. He knows all of our comic voices. And so he's kind of written to that. So there are moments in the show when we have like 7-part harmony, or we have, you know, like these very, very tight harmonies, but it only happened because we spent so much time together. So, you know, it's me, it's James, Elle Morgan, Jason. We're all still core people from the musical theater factory porn studio days up until now. And because we've had all of these wonderful developmental workshops where like we just spend a week working on music, or we just spent a week like looking at the book and literally just talking, or we had like workshops that were just all movement and choreography. So we had like all of these, the gift really, thanks to Musical Theater Factory, and then Page 73 came on board, and Barbara Whitman and playwrights. We had all of this really wonderful developmental time for that to happen. And so then we were able to like welcome all the other people in, you know. So then when Antoine came in, we're like, we got you. This concern that you have, we know, we talked about it, but what do you want to say? You know what I mean? And then same thing with John Michael and now Jaquel. So I think we just basically had the benefit of time and a lot of good development time to make it a tight ensemble.
Yeah. Well, it definitely shows. I wanted to go to one of the things you said when he was talking about how it was important to have Black queer people on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And this show, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a Broadway show, something on Broadway that, especially would, the tagline would be the, you know, big Black queer ass American Broadway show.
Yeah.
And it's a great, like, to have that perspective, I think, on Broadway, to be, what does it mean for you to have a show that's written from that specific viewpoint and be embraced?
So, I mean, you know, so like, I'll go back to what I said about like, sometimes the business of show didn't necessarily want what I had, right? Like,
Yep.
When I first moved to the city and I was auditioning, it was a very different time. And like, casting directors sometimes would say, like, just horrible things directly to your face. And you had to kind of like take it and absorb it and like pretzel yourself to being okay. Like, you just came out of pocket and said to me, I'm not Black enough. Or you just came out of pocket and said to me, your pearls are flying out of your mouth, right? So like, I would go on these auditions and it would be like, you're not Black enough, you're not straight enough, you're not whatever enough. And so just the fact that I can show up in a room and bring all of my authentic self and just me as myself, as my being and my artistry and what I have to offer is what is wanted and celebrated for this show. And now that the show is a hit, wow, like, okay, I'm here for this development, and it's thrilling, because I do remember a time when nothing that I had to offer was enough, or it was too much, or you know, whatever. So it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling, and more than that, you know, the magical thing that theater does is it makes people feel less lonely, right? And people can see themselves or identify themselves or understand the world. And I can't tell you how many times like queer people have come up to me after the show and just gone, I felt so seen. I felt so seen. And when, you know, the cast album is coming out, and when we did the off-Broadway cast album, I was very clear about the fact that some gay boy was going to find this and it was going to make him not kill himself today. And like, I think about that kid a lot, especially when it's like a 2-show day and it's like, I got 1 show voice, and you know, how is this going to happen? I think about that. I think there's that person in that audience, in the 915 seats, there's that person there who needs to hear this message and needs to be seen. I think about that all the time.
Well, beautifully said. We're very happy that you're here, that it's been embraced, that you have a great showing at the Tony. So we can't wait to see what happens with you all at the Tonys. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, John Andrew. It's been a pleasure. And if you're out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep in touch with us throughout the rest of this season. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.